right, it works. Fair enough.
We're going to start off by talking about the player of the game from the last game. Reckless won the vote, 51% or thereabouts.
He had a good game.
Yeah?
I think his MF ult at the end was definitely game-changing.
And he didn't fail any dives early on in the game, which is very important to winning the key player of the game.
We're just welcome to the cast desk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you talked to us a little bit about it. It was a bit of a close game against Xerxe, probably closer than you originally planned. How do you feel now after looking back at the game?
I feel like we weren't really sure how to play around top lane like in the early game. I wanted to skirmish a lot, and what ended up happening is that LeBlanc took priority, levels 4, and then Selfmade kind of, like, he didn't feel comfortable taking more fights in the early game because I traded flashes with the GP, and I wanted to, like, look if Olaf could get a gank on him. We both have no flash, both of us are vulnerable. Either Jarvan or Olaf influencing that lane first will definitely be a big, huge factor in the game going forward for top lane there. So unfortunately, I was the one that I was on the receiving end of the influence, so yeah.
You have been in that situation a few times on Fnatic, like being on the weak side of the map, being ganked early on, and does that affect you through the rest of the game?
I think as long as you communicate, like, of course it does harm your communication sometimes. You get a little bit frustrated and you're like, oh, like, you feel like you didn't have the right idea, and that comes from communication with your jungler as well as just your mindset going into the game, and oftentimes you catch yourself, I had the wrong idea going forward in this laning phase. I should have been playing more defensive from the start.
Have to shift your mentality a little bit. Well, let's shift into gear as we get on into Origen versus Vitality. I'm really looking forward to picking your brain during this pick and ban because you had some very strong opinions before we went live. We'll see if those come to pass as the draft does kick off.
So when we look at like priority bans, right now we're still on 10-2, right, Whippo? So when you're red side, do you feel that you have to ban Syndra along with the Akali, or is only the Akali the priority ban?
So there's usually a gamble that people take where you either give it away to blue side, and then you try to draft a comp against it. You know, beefy champions, Merc Tread, Stoneplate, all this type of deal. It's not fun for Syndra. She likes to burst people. Beefy champions, very good against not getting bursted. And if you don't feel like taking that gamble of, are they going to first pick? Well, the gamble is actually you go red side, and then if they get it on red side, they flex it. And that's when it's really scary. But on blue side, it can be a flex, but often it's just considered as a power pick. You play it. You fit slot into the mid lane. You don't feel like it has any terrible matchups.
Early on in this draft, we have the Set and Akali removed, as we've seen for the rest of the day. Jarvan, Elise, and Soraka taken away by Vitality.
So Soraka ban is a bit surprising, I guess. I guess she's spreading her presence around the EU, if you will. Set and Akali are two solid flex picks for solo lanes, champions that can be a headache, blind picking into. Pantheon, the exact same. You just pick them on one on blue side. They're strong laners. You don't have that many champions that you feel comfortable playing into, and they usually just blind pick it.
And what's interesting is that Origen must have noticed that Vitality were actually banning Syndra on blue side last week, which suggests that they don't have a high priority on it and they don't want to play it. So by leaving it open, they must have expected that they can get it, but of course they leave the Gragas open. And we've been hearing from a lot of junglers that Gragas is like S tier right now, Whippo.
You know how I feel about Gragas. His predator ganks are very obnoxious. He also has the flash on top. A very safe jungler. If the game doesn't go too fast, he's always going to have value, both in team fights and in the early game, looking for those ganks.
And I feel like that when we watch Vitality play, they have a tendency to play towards the top side of the map. So given that they're on blue side, do you think that with a Gragas, there's something you can pair up with a good top lane champ to try and invest in it?
There's many, and usually they get picked up a little bit earlier, such as the Aatrox or the Pantheon, and then you try to get more aggressive lanes, more gankable lanes. But in this case, they're going 4-5, which means Alphari will comfortably find a 5-pick counter pick, most likely. They answer with Senna, which is a champion. Senna, Aphelios are champions that people feel comfortable trading right now. They're both very high power level, and they're pretty much the meta for bot lane. You've got the MF here and there when one of them is out, but it's usually Senna and Aphelios.
We do see Origen locking in the Lee Sin and the Tahm Kench to team up with that Senna, Nautilus, and Aphelios that we mentioned there for Vitality. In second ban phase, Origen will get rid of Yasuo.
There's the Yasuo 4-5, you kind of blind it. Most control mages don't feel comfortable. Champions like Pantheon are pretty good into it, and they get removed from the draft pretty early most often, which means that Yasuo in the 4-5 phase usually gets targeted. Kiana is another AD champion that pairs well with Gragas, a lot of gank setup. Just try to make sure that your mid laner feels comfortable laning against Gragas, because he's got a, disgusting amount of gank setup, of course.
It's looking kind of like a Origen blind Syndra right now? Given that she is still open.
Well, I'm surprised she's still open,
yeah, that's the thing. So I wonder now if Vitality will look to ban it away, because I'd be very surprised if Origen decides to do that, and the fact that they take the Kiana away as well. Like, this to me is just screaming
You're
Syndra,
setting up for a control pick, You're setting up for a solid control mage on 4. Whatever you're comfortable with. Most of the AD champions that can be paired with Gragas, which is a different damage mix, have been banned. There's the Pantheon ban, there's the Yasuo ban, and there's the Kiana ban, so they're probably looking for something that just does fine into other control mages. Because Gragas paired with a control mage, people build Merc's first item, it's much harder for Gragas to get a gank off.
What do you think about a Lucian pick from the side of Vitality?
Lucian is definitely an AD champion that can be paired with Gragas. It's not bad in any case, but it's a 2v2 that most people aren't playing. I'm not seeing it much on stage either. Lucian's a champion that people sometimes feel like needs to snowball too much.
Hey, Cabochard was one of the first players to play Lucian in the top lane all those years ago. Him and Huni. There's the Syndra pick that you both discussed. We'll see where Vitality go for their top and mid lane picks here.
What are you kind of thinking about the overall drafts right now, Pwipo?
So OG is trying obviously to play a slow comp. They're playing Senatam. So if you match that with a control mage, you're playing rather slow. The GP pan is very solid for them because it makes sure that there's no top laners that really want to kite back. There's not many in the game, in the meta at least. So picking a champion like Aatrox will allow Vitality to punish a preempt, like an Ornn pick on 5 here, or something like this, which would fit their comp much better because he's trying to play defensive, save his ultimate defensively, right?
That makes sense.
So here, like, into the Aatrox, you don't have many champions that are beefy, slow, and want to kite. So the Aatrox blind makes a lot of sense for me.
Definitely see that. Alongside that, it will be the Zoe, 4th different champion that Saken has played in his 5 games here at the LEC. And the final pick is Camille. Not going to go backwards, looking to go all the way in.
Well, what you can do is instead of picking a top laner that doesn't work in the team fight, you can pick a top laner that doesn't even want to join the team fight. She's just like, you know what, I'll let you guys do your thing 4v4. I'm going to go into the side lane, and as long as she's good in the game, she's going to be beating the Aatrox. Eventually, she wins against Aatrox. He can hold the fort in lane. I feel like the lane is pretty 5-5 if the Aatrox can control his champion pretty well. Cabochard obviously skilled enough, Alphari very skilled as well, which means that there is room for Camille to find plays, find gank setup and whatnot, but Aatrox in general, I feel like personally has control in this lane. He's got more push, stronger abilities in the early game, and in general is just trying to get ahead of Camille so that he doesn't get outscaled into a different dimension later on.
Well, I'm very happy that we get this matchup and we have you on the desk, Pwipo, because this is a very unique matchup. Well, I say unique, but I think it gives us a lot of opportunity to see some very cool trades in the 1v1. When we kind of look at the rest of the draft, what do you think about the scaling aspects? You talk about Origen playing a slower comp, but when I think of late game, I think of Zoe Gragas offering a lot of value into the late game relative to someone like a Syndra in a league.
Right, so I think in this game, specifically, OG's comp, Lee Sin is doing nothing. He's just there to make the early game bearable. He's just trying to make sure Gragas can't breathe. He's just making sure Gragas doesn't just do his thing, get a Predator gank off. He's happy with life. I want to see Xerxe try to put some pressure on the Gragas, make sure he doesn't get this full clear off, buys his Predator boots, his blue smite, and goes and ganks an unsuspecting top laner, mid laner, bot laner, whatever Gragas feels, right?
Okay, that's interesting to look at.
Now for team fights, as you asked, the scaling aspect, mostly, I think that OG just wants to sit as 4 mid, try to defend any engages, and, well, Tahm Kench eats the bubbles mostly. Hopefully you dodge a couple of those. And then you just wait until Camille takes over the side lane. I think that's definitely going to be OG's game plan going forward, and the way Vitality is going to counter that is by getting a good Gragas engage with a good TP from Aatrox, perhaps a Nautilus ult.
That's what we always talk about. If a team's waiting just to split push or have one person in the side lane, you hard engage onto that team with a numbers advantage, right? It's basics of League of Legends.
Absolutely.
We do have a slight pause just at the start of the game, which is why we're taking a minute before we get in. And it happened with Jactroll last week, Pwipo. We're just keeping you here for longer. We like your dulcet tones. We like talking to you. So you talked a little bit about the isolation of the 1v1 matchup, like the Aatrox should win early on in the 1v1, Camille then outscales. How do you feel these junglers are going to be trying to affect that?
I think Xerxe is going to try and make sure that Camille's scaling safely. Obviously, after 6, there's the Camille, very good gank setup, very easy to look for a kill on Aatrox. I'd like to see Alphari pick up the anti-healing very early so that they can look for the gank opportunities on Aatrox, especially pre-6. After 6, once Lee Sin gets access to the Dragon's Rage, it's much easier to burst down Aatrox, but even then, sometimes Aatrox lives long enough to turn a 2v1 into a 2v2 and potentially survive for Gragas to come in and clean up.
So talk to us about some of the starting items. We see Doran's Shield versus Doran's Blade.
Right.
What do you think about this? What's the logic behind some of this?
So Camille can obviously use her W to try and punish the Aatrox. So she can play really slow, use her Q, just get the movement speed off the creep wave, then cast her W. Aatrox can't really dodge it because if you position it well, you've got control over your champion, you've got more movement speed. It's way easier to poke out the Aatrox slowly. And the only response he really has is by using his Darkened Blade once, right? He can only cast his Q once.
Yep.
You hit it with the edge of the blade, you trade a W for a Q, that's worth it for Camille.
Ah, I see.
If Aatrox commits that trade, so can Camille. And in that case, Camille's passive comes in play, and she ends up winning that short trade.
So, I mean, everything you're describing right now makes it sound like that this is a really good matchup in the early laning phase and the outscales for Camille. So what can the Aatrox do?
I wouldn't say it's a really good matchup for Camille because Aatrox can just force a trade on her.
Right.
And if he's committed to the all-in and goes very, very ham, he can actually end up winning the all-in trade. He then gains control of the minion wave, creates a slow push because his moves are mostly AoE.
Yeah.
Which means that his jungler can influence and potentially look for a kill, right?
I see.
So he gains control over the minion wave the more you trade, which is very valuable if your jungler is first, which in this game it's not, right? Lee Sin has a little bit of tempo. He's starting bot side. Both junglers are starting bot side to try and influence the top lane matchup because this is where the game is going to be decided. If Aatrox can hold down the Camille for the rest of the game, OG doesn't really have a way to win the game, really. Like, they obviously have a strong 4v4. They're just chilling. Nothing much happens, but you'd still want the Camille to be able to pressure Vitality into making poor decisions into the mid-late game.
Origen's primary win condition will be having Alphari in that side lane, then playing Fort in the mid. Vitality trying to stop that, of course, with Cabochard seeing what he can do against Alphari early on. We've already seen Alphari get a little bit of damage down, and as you said, both the junglers heading up towards top. Actually, looks like Skeanz skipped his Razorbics, skipped his Wolves, and is coming straight up here after that blue buff.
All right, so what happened here is that Cabochard, he didn't quite commit as hard as you'd want to. Camille got the W off, and then he kind of chickened out. If that happens and Camille gets level 2, you have to back off all the way.
Right.
Because he didn't back off all the way, she ranks up her hookshot. It's very easy for her to get another easy, quick trade on. And from this point on, the slow push for Camille. Ideally, I'd like to see her crash this wave. And then look for a recall. I believe we call this a cheater recall for anyone that watches LS. This helps Camille put the wave in a good position. Much harder for Aatrox to breathe. He can't really push up because he risks getting ganked and his jungler has to come and cover him, which is never a nice thing to do if you can't actually get a gank off.
Bit of trading in the bot lane as Jactroll landed the dredge line, but Comp is just going to push in this wave.
Now, Whippo, something that you did talk about earlier as well was you wanted to see Xerxe trying to get into the face of Skeanz and try and pressure this Gragas out. And what he's utilizing well is the pressure that he has in mid and top to already invade. And something that you also talked about was providing safety for Alphari. So even though the bot 2v2 is struggling, when you're running the Senatom, you're typically playing for that defensive style. And by bringing Nukeduck up, this whole game plan speaks to be like invest in top, while Vitality try and invest in bot.
Yeah, Vitality look for the dive in the bot lane. It's very difficult against a time catch.
Here we go. We've all been there.
Knocked into the wall. We've all been there with those. Flashbacks. Deja vu for you as Destiny eats the thick skin. Comp trying to get the kill. We'll get it. Jactroll's going to fall as well. As will Comp. It's over. The game's done. They've lost top lane. They've lost bot lane. Just give it to Origen right now.
All right, so what happened there was they didn't quite manage to kill the Tahm Kench, and Comp ended up using his Q on Aphelios, which you can't actually cancel. So he was stuck auto-attacking, and then Upset, already being in range, just walked up a little closer. Comp takes the turret aggro. Jactroll dies from the second to last tower shot. Comp ends up taking aggro, dies as well, and it's just disaster, really, especially considering they got a dive off top lane, which, well, there was not much Cabochard could do after the initial trade. He messed up initially, giving priority to the Camille, but the way Skeanz path implies to me that they weren't planning on playing topside, and he probably just assumed, you know what, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to try and survive here.
So talk us through, when you're looking at this as a top lane, you're like, there's actually nothing I can do, right?
It's very, very difficult. He basically has to flash the hookshot, or uses Umbral Dash to dodge it, and then he has to use the other move that he has left to dodge a Cinder Stun, and then maybe you get a 1-for-1, but you're dead no matter what.
And here we can see the hook landing initially from Jactroll, so he draws aggro, but then a stun comes out from Comp, and now they're looking to try and end things off. Destiny doesn't have any mana. One of the problems they do have is Upset does get that level 3 mark, along with Destiny, so they have that extra bit of stats available to prevent the dive from happening. Yeah. Because you've got to remember that when that dive was happening, top Cabo was only level 3 versus 3 members who were level 4.
A big issue with that dive on the bot side was that comp wasn't actually hitting when Gragas body slammed and took aggro on the Tahm Kench. If they were able to do that and then de-aggro and then loop around backwards...
Oh, this is not good.
Well,
yeah,
a lot of action in this early game.
It's a bit of a struggle bus already for Vitality. Nukeduck not level 6 yet as Saken gets some damage up, but the paddle star's already been used as the cleanse away from the Ignite, and Xerxe's looking for the jump in from the side. One more auto would be enough, but they get into the belly of destiny. Saken still has the flash, but the last embrace is going to lock him up, and this should be more for Origen. However, Nukeduck's fallen, the Tahm Kench has been caught as well, and now Origen are running for the wins. Double flash into the Sentry, responds the blast cone. I called it over way too early. This is Saken's got flash. He's going to jump away, Saken. Not quite able to get in range.
Whew. All right, so we've got a lot of action.
No, that's a lot of action. So I wasn't even finishing explaining the dive, but here we go. Whew. Let's see.
We get a replay. You can watch it again.
Beautiful.
It's fine.
So he gets the proto belt, manages to catch Nukeduck off guard. Nukeduck's really greedy with his flash here, not flashing. I don't think he expected quite that much damage coming out from the Zoe. Obviously, her picking up the summoner spells, running him down with the bonus movement speed she gets from the W. And then here, they feel like they can turn on Zoe, but Lee Sin doesn't have the Sonic Wave, which means that there's not enough damage to finish her off.
Yep.
And Vitality gets the collapse.
I mean, one of the biggest things as well is the fact that Saken was level 6, Nukeduck was only level 5. If he'd had that ultimate, they may have been in a stronger position to turn and maybe win the 2 versus 2. But the moment those flashes were gone, you give Zoe that extra power, and they were able to find a good chase.
Nukeduck's got no sums here. Dredgeline doesn't connect, but Skeanz is coming in as well. It should be easy. Oh, he misses the bubble!
So the phase rush coming in clutch there, actually.
Yeah.
The slow from the Gragas cast didn't quite do anything, really, thanks to the phase rush, and then the bubble misses. I feel like Jactroll should have just played slow, held his hook, waited for the body slam, and followed up CC right there. Not sure. I didn't see the start of that play, so I didn't see where Zoe was, so I don't think she could follow up on the body slam that easily, but that's just unfortunate. I feel like if we hold the hook there, that's a guaranteed kill, and the game looks a lot better for you. Still, it's not a bad game. They made a nice comeback play. The game is playable because you got the BF sword and the Aphelios.
Yep.
He's chilling. He's happy. He's got some gold to spend.
It's actually ahead in gold in that lane now.
Absolutely. So, all in all, other than the top mid lane matchup, bleeding heavily right now, and it will get worse.
So this was my question, Whippo, because obviously, if you're a top laner in this game, you've been involved in none of this action, as is normal for your game, right?
You've been
you just kind of have to.
You've been dived
yeah, you've been dived once, and everyone has now forgotten about you. So if you're the Aatrox in this position, how worried are you about the game state?
Well, right now, you're just praying to God Lee Sin decides not to kill you here. Right. Camille's got the ult. Again, there's no anti-healing on Alphari, so maybe he feels comfortable with fighting in this creep wave. I personally think that he might be able to pull off a 2v1, so I can see where the confidence came from. But for him, getting this recall off and hopefully picking up Ninja Tabai or some defensive itemization will help him stabilize the lane a little bit and try to, well, he went for damage. He wants to kill people. I can respect that. I can respect that. I can respect that. I just think in his position right now, he just wants to not die, not lose the game for his team. Or at least slow down the process of losing the game for his team, because that is going to happen once Camille finishes her items.
So his TP is going to be up in, I think, like a minute or so, something like that. Do you think that that could be an option where they try to invest a TP bot, try and shut down the bot lane or something?
I mean, right now, I feel like most of the action is going to be decided by the junglers. Right. They're both about to hit 6, and all lanes at this point are somewhat volatile. There's just the cleanse on mid lane, which means Gragas can still look for a body slam flash. No flash on Nukeduck. There's no flash on Saken for the same reason, no cleanse even, which means that with a gank setup from Cinder Lee Sin, there's an opportunity there. Bot lanes, there's still no flashes. There's a flash on Tahm Kench, but Upset doesn't have it, Comp doesn't have it. And then top lane, there's just a lot of gank setup here. So no matter who's going for this gank, it can work.
I do like this vision toggle on the minimap, though. It's actually very little vision that Origen have right now. Sorry, that Vitality have right now. Origen have littered that bot side river. Vitality getting a ward in here or there, but quite difficult for him to
in this situation,
yeah.
Cabochard mid-played a lot, but again, maybe? No, he can't. So what ended up happening there is he used all his stacks on his Darkened Blade, his Q, and Alphari played it properly, dodged the third Q with his ultimate. There's no healing, there's no damage, there's nothing. You just die.
I'm beginning to think, Whippo, that you don't need either of us here.
There's a lot of action to talk about.
It's great, man. I'm loving it. You're really informing us, but I could just hold my mute button for the next 10 minutes and let you guys chat.
So in that case, the wave is frozen for Cabochard, and he wants to make sure that Camille has to come into him to get the gank off. He went ahead of his own creep wave, which means it was vulnerable to getting hit by Lee Sin's Sonic Wave really easily. It was too easy to kill him there.
All right, so let's have a closer look at what you were talking about. So this is what you mean where he
goes in front of the creep wave. The hook shot's too easy. He can't really dodge it that close to the wall. He has to flash it at that point, and of course, must not have expected Xerxe to be waiting in the bush, and he just gets a little one-tap free kill.
Do you think some of the logic there is to try and bait the OG duo into a fight because he sees Zoe and Nautilus moving up, and he thinks that he can survive long enough.
And again, if you have defensive atomization such as the Ninja Taba, I can totally see it working. But with such an aggressive build, you're not tanky enough.
Fair.
I am going to thank you very much for your time, Whippo. It's been incredible having you here. My voice is a lot better for it, but we're going to have you leave now.
All right.
Thank you very much for being here, Whippo.
Thank you, Whippo.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the cast. Thank you.
The fans go wild for the top lane maestro himself. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Whippo. Wow, that was extremely insightful.
It was.
Whippo. We learned a lot about top lane. And the rest of the map, because a lot of action was happening everywhere.
It was great. Origen we'll just do a quick state of the game analysis here. Yes, Origen have a 1,000 gold lead. 2 kills on Upset, who's got his Manamune stacking up already. Almost Trinity Force complete on Alphari in the top lane. So feels like Origen are in control of this game all round.
I mean, yes. Something that Whippo talked a lot about was Origen's primary win condition is Alphari. And as we can see, he's now sitting 1-0-1. His Trinity Force is nearly completed. He's in a very powerful position. So Vitality are investing a lot of their resources into trying to put him behind and trying to shut him down. That's kind of like their next game plan. Obviously, what we also talked about was Vitality could look to try and force some of these fights, you know, 4v4, maybe even find a 5v5, because Origen is mainly going to be looking to play slower, play defensively, play disengage, while Alphari generates pressure on a side lane, which means that for this early Mountain Drake, OG likely will not look to contest it. If they can get it for free, then they may look to grab it then, but running the risk of finding a fight around that objective is one way in which they could lose control over the game. And they don't need to do that when they know they have this scaling side lane pressure on their side.
Origen, known for their slow, methodical play, have been showcasing it so far this split. Only 1 loss on their scoreboard, of course, to G2, who pretty much demolished them. Skeanz misses the flash, but still gets the knockback on Nukeduck, who still has his own flash. There's the cleanse once again, unleash power. Sonic Wave dodge, Saken steps to the sides as he will chase him down with the skirmishers, gets the kill. But great play there by the Zoe in the mid lane.
A lot of missed skill shots that we are seeing from both sides. But
hey, missed or dodged?
I'm going to say missed. Okay. When we have a look back at the replay, we'll have a better breakdown. But as Whippo was very rightly saying, a lot of this point in the game is going to be heavily determined by the junglers. Both summoner spells did come back up for both mid laners, but Syndra, due to her inability to avoid things like the Gragas engage, it's something that makes it very easy to set up. He misses the flash body slam. He does land the ult, but then again, Saken misses the E. Nukeduck is then going to cleanse the ignite, but then a good flash here from Saken to allow the Q, but then again he gets kicked out of the Senna ultimate, where he then of course dies to the red smite rather, from Xerxe. So yeah, quite a few skill shots were missed in that exchange, but it ends up being 1-for-1 overall. And the most dangerous thing for Origen is the fact that Nukeduck has now lost both of his summoner spells, which means that Skeanz could look for a return gank, but the same could be said for Xerxe.
Let's see who decides to go towards that mid lane. Of course, Zoe, although with a lot of mobility in her kit, is actually quite easy to catch out when she doesn't have her flash. You know where she's going to land from the portal jump. And
she is obnoxious, though, when she has a summoner spell on her W, because of the bonus movement speed that she does get, can make her even harder to lock down. And of course, the ultimate can be used to dodge things like the Syndra stun, depending on whether or not you can predict where it's going to go. So I think that she's a little harder than that of Syndra, but you are right, she doesn't have any inherent escapes, which means that should a QE land from the Syndra, Lee Sin's just going to land that Q, going to follow up, and it's an easy kill.
And she has an escape, it just puts her right back into the action. So an escape for about a second. Upset missing the last embrace there in the bottom lane, as Destiny took a little bit of damage from the Sentinel. Skeanz, knowing that both the support and the AD carry for Origen are on the bot side of the map, and knowing that Jactroll's here on the top side, ready to help him out, will start up the first Rift Herald of the game. Now Destiny's coming in. It's only him in the Abyssal Voyage. Comp's going to put down the Moonlight Visual. Destiny's going to take a lot of damage. The thick skin shouldn't be enough. Comp gets the 1v2. Alphari with the chase puts him in the baby cage, and eventually Comp will fall. But that was great play from the AD carry for Vitality.
Just shows you how strong Aphelios can be when he has the opportunity to get that 1v1. I think Comp played that very well. I believe he managed to stack up a bunch of chakrams, which is what ultimately gave him that 1v1 power, but the action hasn't stopped yet, Medic.
Xerxe getting dived here in the top lane. Skeanz going to knock him back straight into the body slam. A shut down for Vitality as they are matching Origen blow for blow in this early game.
Yeah, quick response coming out from Vitality. They recognize that the TP has come out from Alphari towards the bot side, so they use the Rift Herald play up towards top. Before we get back to that action, let's have a look at how this replay happens. You can see the chakrams have come out. He gets a bunch of chakrams from both the turret and his ultimate. So I believe he's sitting on about 6 right now, and the closer you are to your target, the faster your attack speed ends up becoming because of how quickly your chakrams return. If Alphari had not joined the fray, he may have just walked away with a kill there. So very well played from Comp, recognizing the power of his champ.
Also deciding, who cares about the 5 guns Aphelios has? I'm just going to stick on this one for the entirety of the fight. Worked out well for him. Origen still with about that 1,000 gold lead will get themselves a Mountain Drake, but first, tower for Vitality fell in the top lane. Looks like it was answered by Origen down in that bottom lane. Having a quick look across the gold, slight lead for Comp, about 300 or so, but look at that sizable sum that Alphari has amassed, 1,400 gold in the lead over Cabochard.
Of course, we can see a slight advantage in favor of Saken, but the XP actually going in Nukeduck's favor. We'll see how much that swings things later a bit.
Well, both have hit level 11 now, so have that second
Completely
activation.
irrelevant then. Great point, Vedius. Ultimate comes out from Comp.
Graviton's going to lock him up. Saken didn't find the connection he was looking for.
Good binding coming out from Upset to lock up any potential follow-up. But the range on the ultimate from Aphelios, very obnoxious. And one of the most annoying things is you can... Because it's difficult to identify what the offhand weapon is, you can keep things like the Graviton secret. Yeah, and then you kind of come out of Fog of War, you switch, you ult, and then all of a sudden that's been applied and you didn't realize you needed to dodge that skill. So it's it can be pretty obnoxious to deal with, and we saw that Nukeduck was forced to cleanse in that situation.
Graviton's really the one that we see most of the time for those teamfight routes, or at least in teamfights, because getting an AoE route on an AD carry is pretty darn effective.
Yeah, and then the flamethrower is the other one. Or the
blue pew-pew is what we call this in the business.
Blue pew-pew. Yeah, I believe that's a professional term, actually.
Or blue flame hellions if you're a StarCraft nerd.
Oh. Yeah. I'm not, so that's an interesting reference.
Well, thanks for the intrigued sort of sound you made, because you could quite easily just be like, do you? Cool.
Oh, yeah, again. Like, fascinating. How interesting. Anyway, let's kind of look at the game state, because we're approaching the 20-minute mark. I kind of want to keep going back to what Bwipo was talking about when we think about win conditions for both these teams. Something that Bwipo and I discussed was about the scaling aspects of Gragas and Zoe into the later game. We're kind of getting to a point where Lee Sin's value is going to get progressively worse and worse. Obviously, he still has the kick, which can be used as a disengage tool, potentially an engage tool, but relative to the Gragas, whose damage will continue to scale, as Saken
nothing's going to happen.
Gets a good bit of damage there, but relative to the Gragas, who's going to continue to scale, there's a lot of teamfight power, especially from Saken on the Zoe. His damage is going to get that much larger. And one of the reasons why Zoe can be a very solid pick into things like Syndra as well is it's easy to land a bubble on an immobile mage in the mid lane, but also she just outranges the Syndra pretty dramatically. Syndra, surprisingly short-range mage, and when enemies come into her sphere, she's very good at getting them away from her, but she's not that good against champions that are outside her sphere and can do a lot of damage from range.
Okay. So, we've heard the discussion, of the 4-1 comp coming out from Origen. Is there like a set point at which that just should roll over the Vitality composition if Vitality don't find these perfect engages and teamfights they want?
I mean, I think this is where kind of the responsibility falls on Vitality, which is something that kind of plagued or has plagued them so far this split, because they seem to draft themselves very specific win conditions. And admittedly, this wasn't them drafting that, it was Origen's answer with the Camille last pick, but they're kind of on a timer. And this is where they kind of need to start grouping up around Comp. You can see that he's almost completed his second item, but he is already pretty strong given that he's level 11, and we want to see them like setting up for these Drakes. Rift Herald isn't available, but that's fine. Trying to utilize this is what we want to see, the 4-man group, and trying to move in to the enemy's part of the map so that you can use your numbers advantage to try and force these fights, where in theory you should be stronger.
Nukeduck's all the way up in the top lane without teleport as well, so although there's a minute 40 left on the Cloud Drake, Vitality use that time to get some vision control, and I expect to see them trying to force around these objectives, as you said, a little bit more. Now, Alphari's jumping forward.
Oh, he can definitely win.
Yeah, he can definitely win the 1v1. Jactroll's trying to get the flank position, but he's going to meet Xerxe straight face-to-face. Xerxe ignited. Should be able to just walk away from a Nautilus, although, of course, Nautilus can do a lot of work as a support. They're looking for this bot lane tower, trying to open up the map just that little bit more. Alphari dodging away as much as he can. There's the Hexag Ultimatum. Piercing Darkness coming out, or Dawning Shadow, actually the ultimate. Oh, great hook, though. Gobbled up by Destiny and immediately spat out towards his teammates. There's no wave here for Vitality. Comp, he's in an awful position. Flashes away, but the Sonic Wave's still going to hit. Here comes Saken. Look at the damage coming out. Comp already down. Didn't go with his team and was caught out.
It was the minion wave that you were talking about, Medic. The fact that it wasn't in a position to allow Vitality to siege meant that Comp had to go the long way around. He used his flash, but that wasn't enough. That allowed Origen to not only get the top lane turret, but they protected their bot lane tower as well, and they converted into a kill. Vitality fumbling on the execution there when it comes to trying to trade for the bot tower.
I like the idea behind it, as you say, just it's been difficult over the course of the split for Vitality to really execute on their windows of opportunity. And there was definitely one there. They weren't quite able to execute upon it. I'll have another look at it because the start of this is actually really well thought out by Vitality.
So you can see that Xerxe is just trying to be obnoxious, trying to stop Jactroll from cutting Alphari's escape route off because they want to disengage. They recognize, okay, let's just trade towers. But then Origen realized, oh, actually, Tahm Kench can come down. Alphari is pretty strong. We have the Senna ultimate too, and then you can see this minion wave is just slowly dying to the tower. Great consume there from the Tahm Kench to keep Alphari alive, and the moment they realize the wave is gone, this is when we see Comp split away from the team. It turned from a 4v3 into a 1v3, and then Saken unfortunately cannot offer enough to protect his AD carry.
And you can see in the picture-in-picture, Vitality lost all control over the blue side jungle. Origen are the ones to start up the dragon, but now have backed away from it. Upset is in the mid lane, can come across. Is that Nukeduck's down towards the bottom?
Let's not forget, though, this is one of those situations where Vitality as a 5-man could turn a fight in their favor. So Origen have to show that respect. You can see that the disengage is already coming out from them. Level 11 has now been hit for Xerxe, so he has that small bit of extra smite damage. Let's see if Origen want to contest this.
How much do you care about the first dragon for Vitality? Well, Abyss of Voyage coming in. Origen split on two sides of it. Pinsir's coming out, but Skeanz has already got it. Kicked away. Won't be able to escape apart from using that stopwatch. Is taken down. Here's the hook from Jactroll, but Vitality should just back away. Here comes Alphari. Flash away from Jactroll straight away to get himself to safety. Com's putting some damage out. Upset just about gobbled up in time. And Origen get out 5 members free. There's the depth charge, but Cabochard's already fallen. The sleep comes out onto Alphari. Nukeduck flashing forward, and Comp goes goodbye. Jactroll's going to fall as well. The stun comes onto Saken. Alphari on the chase, doesn't have the ultimate, and Saken will walk wounded away from the fallen bodies of his comrades.
And that's a really solid fight from Origen. They can look to convert this into the mid-tier 1. There was a possibility of them doing the Baron, but they're not the fastest Baron-taking team, so they're just going to walk away with, all right, maybe not a tower, the rest of them going to reset. Honestly, they're just going to take the kills and disengage overall. Origen recognizing the opportunity to re-engage. We'll look at the start of this fight. Notice that Vitality not actually in a position to fight. They're just trying to zone the Camille away, but that's just kind of leaving Skeanz to the devices of Origen, who've used the Tahm Kench ultimate to come in and create a 4-man front with which they can then pressure onto the dragon with.
It just feels like re-engage after re-engage from Vitality when they're not actually finding any picks.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that it feels like the Vitality is kind of anxious to say, oh, maybe we can fight, maybe we should stick around, but there are numbers down, Medic. They've lost their jungler, they've lost one of their engaged tools, and then they overcommit. The Aphelios damage, admittedly, was good. It was strong, right? But it was too late for them to find that fight. It was far too long, and then Origen found a great re-engage. It cost them the flash from Nukeduck, but again, a lot of summoners were burnt on the side of Vitality as well.
And 23 minutes in, Origen went from having a 2,000 gold lead to a 4,000 gold lead in that last fight. Jumping ahead by 100%. You've got Duskblade and Muramana finished on Upset. You've got Ludens and Banshees finished on Nukeduck. And Alphari, the split-pushing threat, already has his Trinity Force and is on his way to what appears to be a ravenous Hydra.
The extra bit of lifesteal makes you a very strong duelist. It also adds a lot to your wave clear. So it makes a lot of sense. I like it a lot. They've actually moved him down to the bot lane now. His teleport is up. Of course, with the Baron being alive, this becomes the next big point of contention for both these teams. We've also got to note that the Ocean Drake will be the rift of choice this time around. And having that extra ocean will definitely make you much stronger if you're able to get that soul. But honestly, I feel like that the soul is not going to be the biggest priority this game. You're just kind of looking at that countdown time and you're saying like Alphari is going to get more obnoxious, more difficult to deal with as the game progresses, and Origen look to take the mid-tier 1.
And we're still at minimum 12 minutes away from a Dragon Soul in this game. One team has to pick up 3 more. Mid tower goes down, as you said. And I want to just remind the audience, this is kind of what we expected from this game. Vitality have put up a good fight early on, but Origen were always coming in as the heavy favorites. And I think you see some of that experience and some of the veterancy on the squad paying off so far in this matchup. Vitality just struggling to make a few of those split-second decisions that could turn a game around.
You're also seeing exactly what Bwupo was talking about earlier, where there was a 5-man group mids, and Alphari was sitting bot lane, looking at a potential split push. And like, this is what the rest of the game is going to look like. The biggest problem Vitality is having right now is they cannot take this mid-tier 1. And one of the main reasons for it is that it's difficult in order to siege against things like a Syndra and a Senna because of how easy it is for them to land that single target CC. I don't know if you've ever tried to approach a tower and then a Syndra QE comes out.
Yeah, it's
not only are you stuck under the tower, she could potentially clear or at least significantly damage most of the minion wave, and then she can throw her ult out and that could be you dead. Right? Meanwhile, there's a Camille in the bot lane also sieging. So you have to create this situation where you can force the Syndra back and the Senna as well in order to actually take that mid tower. And Vitality haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to get good vision control inside the enemy's jungle to force this Syndra back off the tower so that they can take it. So they've ended up in this awkward, I don't know, gray area where, yeah, they can have 5 people. They grouped up mid, but they're actually too afraid to go anywhere near the tower, which I think they're a little too afraid. Because when you think about their tools, you have a Gragas ultimate. You also have a Zoe who can hit you from very long range, and they can use this poke and threat to actually threaten the mid tower, which right now they're not. They're a little too afraid of what Alphari can do in the side lane. The problem is for Vitality, it's only going to get worse as the game progresses.
And that's the thing, right? Like, I could understand being afraid if you could outscale, or you had a comp that, you know, came online well and truly into the late game. It's like, oh, we'll just wait for 40 minutes, right? But if this is just going to keep happening over and over again, at some point someone just has to say, okay, guys, I'm going to step up. Maybe I'll lose us the game, but maybe I'll make something happen for us as well. And you do wonder if someone, you know, one of the more veteran players on the team, like a Cabochard, like a Jactroll, is the guy that needs to be making that call. We will see if Vitality decide it's time to pull the trigger, but for the moment, they're just going to clear out mid. Jactroll, whoa, upset, just shreds through him right there, just with the Senna, Duskblade complete, sitting at 43 missed off that Absolution passive, so has increased the range twice.
So it's 650 now.
Yeah, plus a rapid fire cannon.
Yeah, the rapid fire cannon is what makes it really obnoxious. We've actually been seeing Senna's prioritize it earlier compared to what we saw before. Sometimes it was like a 5th, maybe even 6th item. But now you try and get it earlier, you have that much more poke. But also, if you think about it, it makes it harder for Vitality to engage on you because you can apply that slow
straight away
that much earlier. Exactly, Medic. So we can see the Ocean Drake is alive.
It is alive. It has now been alive. It will now be alive.
You'll notice on the minimap that Origen have just abandoned the top side. They've also sent Nukeduck into the enemy bot side jungle as cover for Alphari to make it even easier for him to siege onto this tower and take away this objective.
So we actually used to see G2 do this a lot, where Wunder and Perks would both, if Wunder was split pushing, Perks would come down and join him, and they'd collapse on the one player, kill him, and then go for an in-hit, because they knew the enemy team couldn't react.
The irony is we'd also see it from Vitality of last year.
Yep.
Cabochard and Xerxe were very well known for this play, and they would often do it a lot with things like Rise, where the Rise would be split pushing, then Cabochard would appear in the lane, and then they would Rise ultimate in, and then they would try and rush down these towers. So it's something that Vitality, or at least Cabochard, is definitely going to be familiar with, and that's why he shows so much respect towards it. But again, you're also seeing how OG are playing very well around their win condition, and this is something that we see a lot from them. The exception was when they played up against G2, of course, but it's very much a matter of being very aware of what their win conditions are and then playing around them. They haven't tried to overforce any fights. They haven't gambled any objectives. Every fight that they tried to take has usually been in their favor. And you can see now they're just keeping their eyes on the Baron while also allowing Alphari to push out in the bot side of the map.
It's just what you expect to happen. Saken going in, misses the stun onto Nukeduck. Oh, Xerxe just jumps straight onto him. Saken has not been having the best of times with those paddle stars or with the sleepy trouble bubbles.
One of the downsides of Zoe is that if you use your ult preemptively, it makes it very easy for a Syndra to land to a QE. And we see an engage.
It's just gobbled up. This is Tom Kench pick works so well into the Northlands, and now Jactroll's going to get locked up. Pops the gargoyles, but not going to be healthy enough. Upset lands the final auto. Origen find 2 quick kills. Xerxe looking for the flank position, can't quite connect onto comp, but now it's a 1-3-1 that has developed out of the 1-4 comp from Origen.
Yeah. I mean, Origen can easily do this. They have the numbers. Vitality don't. There's only 3 alive right now, and they're just kind of running rings around Vitality. They couldn't control Alphari in the early game. There's a portion where they tried to put him down, but were unable to do so. And now we see the fruits of Origen's labor. Props as well to the bot lane, playing as well as they did. You know, we did hear Whipper talk about how Vitality messed up their dive, and that could have been a big difference maker in terms of trying to get comp further ahead than he currently is. But, you know, again, you also have to recognize Upset now level 15, a lot of items completed. And we're going to have a look back at... Yes.
Yeah, you got to hit stuff.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Even if he does hit it, like, Nukeduck's still going to kill it.
Sure, but, like, why jump forward then? I think Saken at times has been a very good replacement for Melito. He's got visa issues, but has struggled at times as well.
It's the you know, you talked about it. Someone's got to do something.
That's true. That's true. I shouldn't berate him for it.
He looked at it as an opportunity to, hey, maybe I can one-shot this Syndra, and he didn't do it. Like it didn't happen, right? Like I can't blame the guy for trying. It just ends up being punished, you know? And that's the thing. When you make gambles, you don't always win.
It's very true, Velius. Very true. Origen, 8,000 gold ahead. Oh, Jactroll's looking for Destiny. There's a blast cone there. Jactroll hooks the wall, which is a target that you can hook, although perhaps not the target he was aiming for.
Well, if he could have closed the gap and then ulted, maybe he could have set up for a pick. Maybe.
Did you see the gap? He could have autoed him. It's like the gap was not large at the time.
It was, he tried. Okay, he tried. So, I mean, you got to give Vitality something at this point, Medic. Like, the game's over.
So I agree. Actually, let's have a discussion about that, okay? We have two teams who are very likely to be 0-5 after this game. Vitality and Xerxe.
Yes.
Do you feel they are of the same level?
You mean in terms of...
Do you think Vitality and Xerxe are the same? Would it be a very close game if the two played each other?
Oh, I mean, like, I think both teams have very different issues, so I think you're in for an interesting game. Hang on a second. Action?
No.
You sure?
Well, I mean, Jactroll might die.
Are you sure?
Jactroll might die, but yes, no, I am sure, Velius. Was sure all along, never doubted myself for a second.
So, again, I want to draw your attention to the mini-map. That's the word I'm looking for. You'll notice that both top and bot have been pushed in, and Origen are now grouped up as 5 to push in the mid-wave. They're using numbers to guarantee priority in this lane, and they're going to keep returning to these lanes, pushing these waves out, and this is very classic Origen.
Yeah.
This is, you have to feel the pressure of multiple threats across the map.
Yep.
And it's great because I'm making a level up episode on this specific topic around how to use minion waves.
I didn't realize we were allowed to advertise ourselves on the podcast.
Origen is just giving me free material right now, which is great.
Alphari jumps onto Cabochard, just trading on him. There's the Hextech Ultimatum. Cabochard has already popped the World Ender. Dawning Shadow comes out from upset.
But this is beautiful from Alphari because, yes, he invested everything into try and trade against that Cabochard. But look at the minimap. 3 people went down to try and help Cabo. In that time frame, Origen goes straight back to the Baron. And again, it's just because of how much map control they have. Even though Vitality see it, looks like they can contest because of how...
great position.
Yeah, you're right. But Origen's Baron is very slow. Skeanz already in position.
Nukeduck running towards Saken.
All right, so like the idea was good from Origen, but of course the execution couldn't be there because of how slow Senna is when it comes to taking Baron.
He's so slow, and Nukeduck wasn't helping them either, so you didn't have that extra damage coming out from the Syndrus. However, they can still pressure towards this top lane turret. Upset. Oh, everything misses once again.
Yep. It's the day of missed skill shots, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it hasn't been a good one for hitting skills, I'll be honest. Maybe people playing more Legends of Runeterra than League of Legends this last week. Oh, there we go. That one hit.
Yes, nice.
I was hoping that...
But it's one of those questions where, was he aiming?
I mean, okay, he was definitely aiming. Whether he was aiming at upsets. It's a debate. Okay, Betty. 33 minutes in, Origen going to start up the Baron once again, and Origen going to stop the Baron once again as they walk away, and I'm just going to keep talking in this voice as if I wasn't getting excited for anything. Here comes Skeanz coming in from the side. The teleport's being used towards the mid lane as well, and nothing's really happening apart from Alphari. So, you know how I said I don't think we're going to get towards Ocean Soul because that's 15 minutes away?
Yeah.
Here we go. 5 more minutes of intense League of Legends.
It's an Origen game, dude. I mean, I've been thinking a lot, Medic, about how
It's a dangerous thing to do.
I know. But I've been thinking a lot how I differentiate Origen from G2, because the easy answer is to sit there and say, well,
game time.
Yes, right. You know, Origen, play slow. G2, play fast. So I've been thinking a lot more about how I can separate them. And one of the things that I think does separate them a lot is how they use their item spikes.
Okay.
And I think if we look at Origen's comp right now, they've quite comfortably hit their item spikes, Medic.
Yeah, I can agree with you there.
You know, you look at these items and you're like, I think you guys are good, right? But the question is, are they going to use that as a go signal to actually do something? No, right? And I think I think I've kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to like differentiating them, though, because you know, Origen are so controlled that even though they are so much stronger than Vitality, they're still playing it patiently, and that's not the wrong way to play. It's just the patient way to play.
Yeah, it is a way to play League of Legends, and it might not be the most exciting, It might not be the most enthralling because a kill isn't going down every minute.
Yeah, I think it was Whippo on PGL that said they like the 99.999% play, you know? And you can't blame them for that because they want to win, which is fair enough.
It's the idea you don't gamble.
Yes.
You don't have to gamble if you know for sure that the play is going to work.
Exactly.
Not a gamble.
And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about in week 1, where Origen have this really good drafting. I think we kind of see a return of that today, where they've put themselves in a position where they don't have to be the hyper-proactive team. They can just wait. And right now, the person that they're waiting for is Alphari. He's been generating so much pressure on the side lane. But the stalemate situation that they find themselves in is, without Alphari, their Baron is way too slow.
Super low.
So
super slow.
We'll now see how Origen try and force their way into the base. They may just wait for the Ocean Soul in 3 minutes time.
I mean, they can do that. Upset takes half his health as Saken jumps across the wall, and that is a difficult. Oh, Jactroll's going in. He's done that a few times. Does he not realize that he can just be gobbled up? They still get the lock up onto Nukeduck, but I mean, Jactroll, you've tried that a lot of times. Definition of insanity. Trying the same thing over and over again.
I mean, he's got to try, though. He's got to try.
That time he did lead with Hook and then wait to use the depth charge.
Yes.
So he's varying it up. He's varying it up.
But I mean, like, yeah, they're kind of just limited on options. And like, we did talk about it earlier, but like, the problem that Vitality keeps having is with their drafts. And like, sure, there probably are different things, but when we listened to Whipper talking about it, like, he was quite happy with the direction that Vitality was taking their draft. And it was just this Camille counterpick that came out, just meant that now they had to play in a certain way. Yeah. The problem that Vitality has, they have 3 rookie players, you know?
Yeah.
And when you get put into conditions where you have to be proactive and you have to be the one dictating the outcome of the game, it's like harder. Yeah. It's a lot harder to play the game.
That's a fear of making a mistake. When we played Clash together, I was afraid I was going to lose the team the game. And this is a lot bigger than Clash. This is a lot more important than a single game of Clash. Sure. I played incredibly well, everyone at home. Hard carried the team. Didn't get carried by Alphari.
The fact that we were playing with Alphari had nothing to do with it.
Don't know what you're talking about, Vidius. It's all my Rakan. Anyway, Vitality's setting up down towards...
Oh, they've actually brought Alphari this time.
So the thing is, Cabochard's all the way down to the bottom side, and Vitality have no idea where anyone is on the map. They know that no one is in this blue side jungle, and that's about it. Now they know.
Now they know. Here we go. It's time for the show to flow.
Please stop rhyming. I've drunk my water now. The damage coming down onto Jactroll. Upset uses the Dawning Shadow, but Vitality have to get in there soon because that Baron is very low. Saken jumping forward, looking for the steal, can't quite land it. Jactroll on the front line lands the knock-up onto Nukeduck, but you have to feel that Origen could just turn and burn on this fight. Alphari flashing forward straight onto Saken. Comp trying to get in from the side as well, but Alphari still has the GA. The rest of Origen are on the chase. Comp just about able to get away, but the rest of Origen is going to chase him down. Upset goes godlike. Comp trying to trade against the Tarm Kench, and he's winning it for the moment, but Upset is here now. Alphari gets a kill on the top side. Comp goes down on the bot, and it's 7 kills to 6 for Origen.
The ace comes through for Origen. They do not lose a single member, and now they have the base in their eyes. Origen gonna look to close this one out in around 38 minutes.
Well, they keep trying to extend the game time in the league, Vidius, but that's only about 5 minutes slower than our average. Origen, they did it the way they do. They painted by numbers. It was slow, it was methodical, but it's everything Origen has come to be known for here in the LEC in spring. Vitality tried their hardest, but it just wasn't enough. Origen take the game and go 4-1 in Spring Split.
Yeah, clean, controlled. Very little that Vitality could have done once we reached the later stages of the game. And sure, there were definitely a couple, I mean, like, the biggest criticisms have to come towards Vitality's execution in the early game. We saw the tower dive didn't go the way that they wanted to. We saw them overstay around the Drake fight, where Origen were able to find 3 kills. And it was just a matter of every play they tried to make, it didn't work out in their favor, which slowly but surely, they slowly started losing more and more. They were getting outscaled.